maybe anything, because we've talked about this before, that brings up past feelings of closeness. Chances are pretty good, like back in your early dating life, early married life, you had a shared something. Maybe, how can you bring that back? Rather than just focus on the bad person that they've become in all these ways.
But the brain likes to go after grievances because especially when you're afraid, it feels like if it talks about these things, it's doing something,
Right.
and it exhausts you. You get depressed, then you don't want to participate. So I think we sink our own ship sometimes. Welcome back to Marriage Sparks. So appreciate you guys sticking with us. We are trucking along here with this, and
We were very conflicted about who was going to begin. So
yes, apparently chivalry is dead. So I did the intro. So appreciate you guys sticking with us and listening to us. Today we're talking about conflict, and it's kind of a weird thing. Is I've been in the process of like trying to finish up a book. Hopefully, it'll be out at some point in the next year or whatnot. But as I'm writing it, the one thing that comes up is like, what happens when you can't stand your spouse? What happens if you just can't stand your spouse? Like, what if you just straight up hate that person? Maybe hate is a rough place, because we've talked about conflict on this podcast before, but sometimes you're in a relationship with someone and the resentment has built up so much. Like, what do you do? Like you say, like the person who plays video games, the person who's
like you just don't like who they
neglectful.
are.
Yeah, you don't like who they are, or they're doing things that are just destructive. They drink too much, or they're involved in bad things, pornography or video games or gambling, or they're always buying stuff that you don't need for the house, or maybe they're verbally or emotionally abusive. What is it that you do in that situation where conflict is real and you can't pretend like it doesn't exist? So
There was a lot right there. My first thought was, that is why God designed marriage the way it is, to be permanent, because when you hit that, like, you can't control if somebody turns into somebody you don't like, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks, because they're really, from the Catholic viewpoint, there's no way out. Now, I think a lot of people will say, well, if the person's like this, then you can get out. You also put playing too many video games, spending too much money, and emotional abuse all in the same level, which is highly controversial and hot topic. So I might need to ask you to define your terms there. Do you mean like yelling and screaming too much? Like, what do
Emotional
you
abuse, you
do?
mean?
Yeah, emotional abuse. Like, what?
Well, that's maybe we're gonna table the conversation. Maybe
Okay.
emotional abuse is something
It
that
might
we
be
have to talk
separate. Let's
about.
separate that out.
We'll
So
just
let's
talk
say you're
about
not
bad
attracted to that
habits.
other person. Okay.
We'll just say that they have increasing bad habits. We'll save emotional abuse for tomorrow. That
Perfect.
lady's choice.
So
right?
terrible, bad habits. You just look at your spouse and you're like,
Just
why did I?
after all these years of resentment, people come to you. If someone talks to you and they're like, yeah, I resent this person. They've made me raise all the kids alone. They're always working, right? They're always working, or they're always out with their friends, or they're always playing hockey, or my wife never has time for me, whatever the deal is. And those resentments build up. Like, what is it that that person is supposed to do?
I really think the only way out is prayer and honest conversation, because I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you say, have you communicated your honest feelings of what you need to your spouse? Have you, like, I loved it when you did this, and you don't do this anymore. I miss it.
Hmm.
But see, that sounds a lot different than I hate when you do this.
Well, yeah, one makes you very defensive,
Right?
Yeah.
So that is a different conversation. And then the person might ask, well, what do you mean? Like, well, instead of, saying, hey, let's, veg out on the couch together, you go to your man cave every night, and I feel neglected, and I kind of miss spending time with you. Or I want to be with you, but it's really hard right now. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm more honest, open, without slamming the person. But really, I don't know, like, maybe the question of, Lord, help me to love this person more. Help me to feel that, attraction, help that person to do whatever. And I feel like the power of prayer is really, oh, it's just saying prayers. Really, that surrendering, I think, needs to happen, and just begging for God's grace. It changes things.
Yeah, but I think that like when people I think one of the fruits of prayer automatically, not just the supernatural experiences, but the natural experience of prayer is it rewires your brain out of this loop of judgment because you're not focusing on yourself and feeling so trapped.
Mhm.
You have to direct your attention away from yourself. because if you have to protect yourself, now your brain is in what we would call defend mode. So you're not even able to pay attention. You're just going to be afraid. And like you said, if you're afraid, you don't talk about your needs. You can't be honest. And then when you do talk about your needs, the other person just hears the criticism stuff. It hears like, I
Mhm.
hate you. You never do anything correctly. And then you get into a really bad situation where you start to go closer and closer into divorce mode, right?
Mm.
And divorce really is, for most people, the sin of despair in a lot of ways. Like, I can't change, you can't change. God has no ability to help us, so I'm bouncing,
I
right?
mean, what about just doing something together? Like, I'm just trying to brainstorm in my head, like, hey, like, can we, like, that's something we always, maybe anything, because we've talked about this before, that brings up past feelings of closeness. Chances are pretty good, like back into early dating life, early married life, you had a shared something. Maybe, how can you bring that back,
Mm.
rather than just focus on the bad person that they've become in all these ways, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, in some ways, that's why, like when we designed even the Hearts Renewed program, it makes people start to go back and mine their success, right? To dig up the success, not the grievances. But the brain likes to go after grievances because especially when you're afraid, it feels like if it talks about these things, it's doing something,
Right.
and it exhausts you. You get depressed, then you don't want to participate. So I think we sink our own ship sometimes. And so I guess, like, if you have a situation like you're saying, like where the spouse is really, it's got really bad habits and you got a lot of resentment. I mean, yes, I think you want to pray for sure. I think you want to pray and ask God to give you the ability.
Did you know there are two kinds of desire in marriage? One just shows up, the other has to be built. Most couples only wait for spontaneous desire, the kind that feels automatic. But over time, that one fades and fluctuates. Responsive desire is different. It grows from closeness, from touch, from emotional safety, from friendship. And when you understand the difference, everything changes. We created a free guide called Into Me You See, a couple's guide to true intimacy, to help you rebuild trust, lower pressure around sex, and develop desire in a healthy, natural way. If you want deeper emotional and physical connection, download it now. It's free. Click the link in show notes or go to heartsrenewed.org and start tonight.
To love like him, and especially to see like him, the other person. One of the hardest things in my own practice with couples is to just simply direct them to, fast, right? We're in Lent still, fast from all of the negatives about your spouse, from talking about it. If every time my wife puts on, this outfit and I have to comment about it, well, she's going to either wear it more, not wear it, resent me. If every time I tell my son or my daughter, well, you're just awful at the kitchen and doing the dishes, they're going to get worse at it. They don't get better. And if they do actually get better because I've shamed them, well, it doesn't mean that we have a relationship. I might have got the task accomplished and lost the relationship.
Right.
My wife might dress differently, but she may be afraid of me, so there's always an exchange. But I think practically we want to fast from the things that we do not want to see. We don't want to talk about the things constantly that upset us, unless
Mhm.
it's a safety issue, right? Those safety issues need to be talked about. But because you're, constantly giving all of your attention to, well, why are you always in the basement? Why are you always going out? Why are you always buying stuff on Amazon? How come you never hug me? How come you never want to do anything other than sit on the couch and watch TV? How come you're always on your phone? All of these things. It's
So
like
how do you help to change those, have the other person recognize that those small things matter to you without sounding like you're nagging them?
Well, I think that you have to have patience, and then you have to wait for the moments where parts of what you want are present and then reward it. It's like if you do part of what I desire, I want to reward it and tell you that it's pleasing to me, because it's all about increasing that responsiveness. So let's say, for instance, I want my wife in this dynamic, I want my wife to be more playful. And so now I got to think about, like, what are the things that are really attractive, right? That my wife does that I can reward in some way. And so there's two parts to this. One is recognizing the things that she's doing that are pleasing to me and making sure she knows that I see it. Because at this point, if she is doing behaviors that aren't helpful, or your husband's doing behaviors that aren't helpful, their confidence is going down. So if you feel awful, like your spouse feels awful too. Sometimes people are like, well, my husband doesn't care. He's oblivious. No, he feels awful. He just doesn't communicate it, because the two people are connected. It's not just her or me that feels bad. It's both of us always. And so I got to figure out, okay, well, today, like my wife, like made me breakfast. Well, I'm going to show appreciation for that. I'm going to make sure that she knows like that I really thought this was a good thing. She, made time for me after she put the kids down. And I'm going to tell her like that was really attractive. And I really felt loved because if she doesn't know like how to move the needle, like she's going to be discouraged. If for whatever reason we go out and my wife is, shows discipline in spending, if that's a problem for her, she's like, I know that you get upset if I go to Home Goods and I buy this thing. Well, I'm not going to say anything, but then when we drive home after date night or whatever, I'm be like, well, that was impressive to me because I know you enjoy like purchasing things for the home. But instead of being defensive, you have to kind of see that you're training your spouse either into things that make you delight in them, or you're training them by shaming them. It's kind of like we joked about this before, is if my wife doesn't, we'll use the simple example of if my wife doesn't like it when I have a beard because she breaks out in a rash, well, she can be like, oh, it bothers me when you have facial hair, which my wife won't say that. She never will say that, right? It's
No,
true.
I said it to be consistent.
Hmm.
It's your body. You can have a beard or not.
Yeah,
Just have
that's
to
right.
tell
Yeah.
you what to
So
do.
so even on camera, she will continue this story. But the thing is that what if she prefers me to be clean shaven, she just has to be.
I do say, I love kissing you when your face is all clean. It's so nice.
Yeah, or she will kiss me more.
Yeah.
So why would I not want, so it gets in my head of this is what I want to do, which is very different because I used to have a beard for a long time. But I think like somehow because there's been a positive reward system of when I'm clean shaven, my wife is more interested to kiss me or show affection. Well, why would I not want to do that? It's very different than you need to like the beard. It's really important that you like it. And again, this is a simple thing, but it just, again, like to reinforce in a positive way versus to describe, well, oh, I can't believe you don't shave. Oh, I hate a beard. I don't like it. It's so gross. Well, that's not going to get me to probably not,
And you're like, well, it's my face. I can do what I want. No,
I
at least that's
could, but even if I shaved, I might not feel like that's something I want to do. The thing is, I actually want to shave more because of the way that you reinforced it in me.
yeah, cool.
So now you know our personal hygiene habits, and this episode was brought to you by I have some shaving company. Just kidding. It's not. But if you've enjoyed this so far, please stay tuned. Share this with somebody. Again, reinforce the things that you want. Figure out how to discipline your attention. Discipline your attention towards the things you want to notice, right? So notice more of what you want to see more of and notice less of what you don't want to see. You got to starve your attention. And that's the hardest thing, especially if you are in a situation that is very hard. So tomorrow we're going to talk about emotional abuse because we've separated that. It is in a separate category. So stay tuned. And if you haven't hit subscribe, please do. And if you still don't want to do that because you're resistant, just pray for us. Okay.